Which brings me to my next shortcut, which is R. If I have a clip selected and I select R, I'm able to change the clip speed in here with all these different parameters. So like I just said, we can slow this down to 40%. So I can go into here, into the speed percentage here, change this to 40%. Make sure that I have ripple timeline selected. I usually leave this on. This is like what I was talking about before. If we leave this off, then when this clip expands from slowing it down, it will overwrite the clips that are next to it. But if we have ripple timeline selected, it's going to push everything over and it won't be able to overwrite onto any other clips. So let's click change over here and we can see that we've slowed down this clip. We've also extended it and it is now playing back at 40% speed. I'm just going to mute the audio here because it does not sound good. I don't even know why an FPV drone would need to record audio, but we've slowed the clip down to 40%. And of course, we have some other options when we press R as well. We can change what frame rate we want to play back at, the duration of the clip. We can also reverse the speed. We can also freeze at a certain frame. We got lots of functionality in here. Next up, we have Command R, which gives us our retime controls. If I hit Command R, we can see we are presented with this speed change bar up here. I'll zoom in on this. And if I click and drag on the top right of this bar over here, we can see the percentage over here is changing. So I've brought it back to 100% speed, just like that. If I want to slow it down, I can grab the top right of this, slow it down all the way to 20% if I want to. Obviously, it's going to be choppy in this case because we're working with 60 frames per second, so we can't slow down past 40%, but this is just a quick way for me to be able to retime a clip simply by clicking and dragging just like this. I can also do the same thing on the left side over here as well. And if at any point I want to reset the retiming that I did on any clip, I can hit Command Option R, and just like that, we're back at 100%. We've reset the retiming. I can also press Command R again to hide those retime controls up top. And the next shortcut is Command Shift R. So if I hit Command Shift R, it's going to give me my retime curve. Now down here, I'm able to do things like add speed points. So over here, if I hit Option, I can add a point over here. I can add another point over here. And if I hit Command R on my clip again, I'm able to see those speed points that I've added. So now I can make changes over here. So I can grab these speed points, move them around. So I can bring this middle part to 40%. So I'm going from 100 to 40% to 100. And I can make speed changes just like that very easily in my timeline. Using the retime curve can be very helpful because it allows me to very quickly add speed points to my clip like this, whereas the alternative would be to go down here and select add speed point, which is not as fun, takes a little bit longer. But this is a topic that we're going to be diving much deeper into in the edit tab on this specific lesson. So I'm not going to dive too deep, but just know that Command Shift R allows us to bring up this retime curve over here. This is something that we're going to be using a lot of. And just like I said before, we can hit Command Option and R to reset our retiming on our clip. Just like that, I've brought it back to 100% and I've deleted all of those speed points. It's basically reset the retiming. And just like before, I can hit Command R to hide the retime controls and Command Shift R to hide the retime curve. So next up, we have Shift Z. This is one of my favorite shortcuts. It's so good. So you can see how zoomed in I am here on my timeline. If I press Shift Z, I'm able to zoom out to the full extent of my timeline. So this is the first clip of my timeline. This is the last clip. So it basically kind of scales the timeline to the size of the display. So it basically like zooms out of my entire timeline so I can see every single clip in it. So if I was to extend this clip out here and I hit Shift Z, then it would now zoom to fit everything here. So I'm going to delete this clip. And if we press the Shift Z again, it will basically take us to our previous scale that we were at in terms of zoom. So if I zoom in here on my timeline here, Shift W to zoom in, and I hit Shift Z, now we've scaled out. But if I hit Shift Z again, we jump back to that previous zoom range that we were at. So this is really great. I use it all the time. If I need to take a look at my entire timeline, maybe jump to a different part of it, I can hit Shift Z, zoom out, and then zoom in again just like that. Really, really amazing shortcut. Next up, we have Command E. This is a whole lesson in itself. We're going to be diving deep into this as well in the edit tab. But here's a quick summary. If I select a bunch of clips here, let's say these three over here, and I basically want to turn these three clips into one clip, I can basically group them by making a new compound clip. So if I hit Command E, I'm presented with this new compound clip window and I can give it a name. Most of the time I don't name them. I just click enter. And just like that, we can see those 3 clips magically turned into 1 clip. And this compound clip is basically like a package. Those clips are still inside of it, but we're not able to deal with those clips individually here anymore. We've kind of grouped them together, and we are now dealing with all 3 of those clips as 1 clip. So if I make a position change to this compound clip over here, let's open up the inspector, shift tab, and let's say I zoom in here and maybe rotate it a little bit. This is applied to the entire nested clip, not just to one of the individual clips, but to everything that is inside of it. So we're basically treating this compound clip as though it is just an individual clip. Doesn't matter how many clips or effects or whatever is inside of it, we are treating this whole compound clip as though it's just 1 clip. I'm gonna close the inspector, shift tab. Now, let's say we want to enter this compound clip that we've just created. Well, we can do Command Shift E. This is a variation of the original, which was Command E. Command E is to create the compound clip. Command Shift E allows us to enter that selected compound clip. So, we can see that there's actually 4 clips within it. My bad, I thought there was only 3. But now we've entered that compound clip. We're inside of that timeline. Now, you might be asking, how do we know that we're inside of the compound clip over here? Well, if we look in the bottom left corner over here, we can see this is the compound clip that was found within timeline 1. And we can quickly jump back to timeline 1 by just double clicking on timeline 1 down there. And now we're back to where we started. And we can see that this is the compound clip that we were just inside of. And of course, the last shortcut for this is to decompose the compound clip. If I hit Option Shift E, we can see that all of the clips that were originally inside of that compounded clip have now been brought back into this timeline. This is huge because what we had to do previously in programs like Premiere or whatever, I'd have to go into the compound clip, so Command Shift E, enter it. And what I would have to do is just copy all of this stuff, go back to the original here, go back to the start of the compound clip and just paste that stuff back in, which is extra work. The ability for us to decompose the compound clip simply by pressing Option Shift E is huge. It's basically like, let's not make this a compound clip anymore. Give me my clips back. And I can do all of that just with 1 shortcut. Really, really awesome. Next up, we have the ability to find a certain clip within our media pool. So if I have a clip selected and I hit Option F, our media pool is going to open up, and then that clip that I selected in my timeline that I hit Option F on is going to be highlighted here in my media pool. In a lot of situations, you're going to want to be able to very quickly find certain clips that are in your timeline in your media pool. For example, in some situations, I'll have a clip and a lot of the time I'll accidentally delete the audio for it, maybe underneath or something. And I'll be like, shit, where can I find that audio? It's no longer in my timeline. Well, I can just select the clip, hit Option F, find the clip over here, the original, double click it, view it in my preview over here, and I can select the in and out points, 4 and 5. Normally, if the clip has audio, I can hover my mouse over top of here, and then I have the ability to either just drag the video or the audio down. So I could just bring the audio if I wanted to, or I can just click and drag, bring the whole clip down with the audio. So it can be very useful to find your clips that are in your timeline within your media pool very quickly with the shortcut Option F. And that brings me to my next shortcut, which is Command Shift F, which is Show in Finder. If I right click on this clip, we can see we have the option to reveal in Finder, but that takes a long time. So what I do is just Command Shift F, and it will show me the Finder folder where that clip is. And I'll use this a bunch as well, especially when I'm in a project and maybe I find a clip that I'm definitely not going to be using, or maybe it's really long and it's taking up space on my hard drive. I'll just select the clip, hit Command Shift F, reveal it in my Finder, hit Command Delete to bring it to the trash bin, and then Command Shift Delete to empty the trash bin, and to just very quickly free up storage on my drives or my computer, wherever that footage is. It can also be very useful to find the original media in case you need to send maybe just one individual clip to someone else. Command Shift F is going to be your best friend in those situations. So I'm just going to close the media pool here by pressing Tab. Now this next shortcut is one that I use all the time, but only when I'm not at home, usually when I'm just using my laptop and I don't have any external monitors, and that is Control tilde. If I hit Control tilde, I'm able to enter full screen mode. Now this is very useful when I'm watching stuff just on my laptop, making selects and this and that, because I'm able to view my preview full screen, and this is a lot more enjoyable than watching this little square over here. So Control tilde allows me to toggle full screen mode, and I can watch my stuff just like that. Now, one thing that's kind of annoying for me is that I'm not able to use the up and down arrow keys when I'm in the edit page. Right now I was oddly enough able to jump back one clip, but that's it. Now it's not letting me do anything. A lot of the time what I like to do is just enable full screen mode and jump between the clips. So to do that, I'll just move over to the color tab over here, enable full screen again, and then in the color tab, you're able to jump up and down with the up and down arrow keys just like this. So a small workaround, I'm sure Davinci will give us an update, but right now all you got to do is just go to the color tab so that you can jump between clips like this in full frame mode. So next up we have L on our keyboard, and that is loop playback, and that is on the right side of the keyboard. It's a shortcut that I use less of. It is a shortcut that I use a bunch of when I am in the sound design process, but let me show you what it does. So if I hit L, we can see that this icon is enabled over here. It turns red, and this is the loop button. So when I press L, the loop button is enabled. Now, what does the loop button do? Well, it allows us to loop in and out points on our timeline. So if I create an in point over here, 4 in point, 5 out point, let's say I want to just continuously watch this clip over here. Well, with loop playback selected, we can press the space bar, and now this isn't going to work. The space bar doesn't allow us to continuously loop. What we have to do is select shift and the space bar. So shift and space bar allows us to play in to out point. When we press play by using shift and space bar, it's basically telling the computer, let's play the in to the out point, but we have loop playback selected, so it's going to constantly loop from the out point back to the in point. And this can be very, very useful, especially when you're doing sound design, because a lot of times you'll be using VSTs or external plugins on your audio, and you're going to want to just loop a certain part of your video, and then you can mess around with the VST, with the frequencies, with anything that you want, and keep listening to that sound in real time while the timeline is just looping that in and out point. So very, very useful. It's something I use all the time in sound design. So I'm going to hit Option X to clear that in and out point. And the next shortcut we have is Shift C. This is used to show and hide your curve editor. So Shift C, we can see this is the curve editor down here. And if I zoom in on it like this, we can see we have this little arrow here. And basically this is the space that allows us to play with keyframes and the animation between the keyframes. So if I click this little drop down here, let's select position. And what I can do is hold Option on this line that comes up over here, create 2 points, and I can push this one up. And I've basically animated this clip so that the position value goes from this point here to this value over here at this point in time. So we're slowly animating between these 2 points just like that. We've been able to very quickly do that just by using the curve editor. Now I'm not going to dive too deep into this. This is another whole lesson in itself. Just know Shift C allows us to show and hide the curve editor. So I'm just going to delete this second point over here. If I hit Shift C again, we've now hid the curve editor. Now, if I hit Command Shift C, we are able to show and hide the keyframe editor. This is different. Basically, this allows us to just see the keyframes for all of the properties up here. So in the transform section in our inspector. So if I press this little arrow over here in the keyframe editor, I'm able to access all of the transform properties of the clip that have already had keyframes made for those parameters. So in this case, the position has been changed, so that's why it's showing us that. But let's say I set the keyframe for zoom. We can see that now we have this zoom area here, and I can start to play with the keyframes for the zoom. So if I increase the zoom over here while I have keyframes enabled, we can see that I've created another keyframe here, and I'm able to play with where those keyframes sit in time. Now the keyframes that we see over here can also be seen in the curve editor as well. If I hit Shift C, we can see that we now have that same zoom keyframes over here. Again, don't worry if you do not understand what this is. This is really just to understand the shortcuts to enable these features. The curve editor and the keyframe editor, we're going to be diving deep into all of these within the edit tab. You're going to be an expert at all of these functions later on. Right now, we're just focusing on the shortcuts. So again, Shift C to close the curve editor, Command Shift C to close the keyframe editor. And just like that, we're back to where we started. We can also hit Command Shift X to just remove all of the attributes over here. So I'm just going to remove everything. And now our clip is back to normal. And we're almost done here. We only have a few more shortcuts left. The next one is H. H basically allows me to show the selected timeline in my media pool. So when I press H, we can see over here we have something selected. I'm gonna hold Shift and just scroll so I can move over in this area, and we can see that the timeline that we are currently working in is selected within our media pool. So this is just a great way to very quickly go to whatever timeline you're working on in your timeline here, find it in the media pool. it's great. It's honestly saved me a lot of time. I really like this shortcut. The next shortcut is Y. So if I'm in my timeline here and I select Y, first I'm going to zoom out, Shift Z to see everything. Now, when I press Y, we can see that all the clips to the right of my playhead have now been selected. All of the clips in track 1, that is, we can see these 2 clips over here in track 2, they haven't been selected. Well, the reason they haven't been selected is because only track 1 is selected over here. The way that we know that track 1 is selected is because V1 over here has this red border around it. So if I press V2 over here and I press Y again, we can see that now we've selected everything in track 2. So Y will allow us to select everything in track 2. Now, the reason this last clip over here was selected is because the audio is being selected. We can see that there's only one audio track, and because A1 is selected, we are also selecting this clip over here because these clips are linked over here. And next up, we have Command Y, which does the opposite of what we just did. So if I press Command Y, it'll select everything to the left of the playhead. Now, because we have track 2 selected over here, it's selecting nothing because there is nothing in track 2 over here previous to the playhead. So if we have track 1 selected, Command Y, it'll select everything previous of the playhead. Now, I use Command Y a lot less. What I use more of the time is just Y to select everything to the right of the playhead, so I can just create an opening somewhere, maybe add a sequence here, add a bunch of clips, this, that, whatever it may be. Y is great for selecting everything after the playhead. And next we have Shift D, which allows us to bypass color grades and fusion effects. So watch what happens to this icon over here when I press Shift D. We can see that we disable it, and then by pressing it again, we are enabling it. So nothing's happening to our image because there are no effects or color grades applied to it. But let's say we did some kind of effect here. Let's give it an S curve. Why not change the temperature as well? Now, if I'm in any page of Davinci over here and I select Shift D, it'll basically bypass the color grades and fusion effects just like that. So if at any point I want to see my raw image, I can just hit Shift D. I can also just click this button over here, but Shift D is the faster way to do it. I'm able to very quickly see my raw image. This is very useful in times where you want to see how far you've taken a clip. Maybe you've added lots of effects to it. Maybe you did some object removal, this or that, whatever it may be. You can hit Shift D to bypass those grades or to turn them back on. So that's it for this video. This is essentially part 1 of the Ravenclaw keyboard shortcut layout. This layout is definitely pretty extensive. There's a lot to memorize, and that's the thing. You don't have to memorize everything. Just really what you need to do is just start editing and understand what tasks you're performing the most often, and just make sure that you are aware of the shortcuts for those tasks. And also feel free to create custom shortcuts too. That's something I do all the time, depending on the project. Maybe there's gonna be a situation in the future where I'm gonna be doing a lot of something that I used to never do before, and I'm gonna want to create a shortcut for it, maybe long-term or maybe just for that project, whatever it may be. It's important for me to know how to customize my keyboard shortcuts, and we learned that in the previous lesson. Command-Shift-K is a shortcut to bring up our keyboard customization window. In here, we can make any changes that we want. Make sure to download the cheat sheet as well. Keep that handy so you can always access it and see all of these shortcuts at a glance, so that, you know, it's gonna be easier for you when you're starting off. You don't have everything memorized. You can just quickly access that cheat sheet and find the exact shortcut that you're looking for. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you learned something new, and I'll catch you in the next one.